I have a great little cheat to do some simple, quick watercolours.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be, or good evening or good night. This is Jen at Jen's Arty Inclinations, a place to create, share and play.
So this is DEPHEMEREMBER. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And Louise and Barbara's links are down below. They're our hosts. Now, today's prompt is forgotten snacks. Now, I really don't like using lolly packaging and snack packaging in my junk journals. It's just one of the few things I don't tend to do. However, I figured that forgotten snacks are fruit. You know, fruit's a snack. And if you paint or do drawings and all that sort of thing, still life is often either flowers or fruit. And they can be really simple just to grab an impression. You'd be surprised. So if I'm doing a small little drawing, like a little sketch, I start out by just roughing up some shapes on a piece of paper, just so I get the idea of what I'm doing. Now here, this is an apple. And what I'm actually doing with my pen is I'm kind of doing feather lines. I'm not necessarily putting in all of the detail. I'm just doing a shape and I'm adding a few little dots and rough lines that are almost cross-hatching for a little bit of shadow or a little bit of detail. That's it. It is really quick. So you can see that's taken me about not even 10 seconds, I don't think, to draw. I'm probably fussing a little bit more with my first one, my apple. Now, the pen that I'm using, it's just a fine liner and it's a waterproof one. So there's my little apple. Now, that's got a bit more detail. I tend to get a little bit looser as I go along. I haven't done these for ages, so they are probably a little bit more line work in them, but you can do a lot less. You can literally do the shape, do a bit of a shadow, and you're done. That's all you want to think about. Now, when you're doing your little stems, a little upside down smile under the stem will kind of make it look like it's sitting in the fruit. And what am I doing here? I'm doing some pears. You know, bit of an impression if you pop something behind something else. Now, see how on the right there, I started the shape and it was just in the wrong line. So I just went around, but that line actually works for a little bit of detail on the pear. So don't think about it. If you've made a mistake, keep going. You will be amazed once you add some colour. That's the second trick. Suddenly it'll make sense. So there you go. That's the pears. Oh, bananas. Look, even though I'm saying it's easy, for some reason, I find bananas really, really hard to draw. I find it never works for me unless I do 2 or 3, like just one never looks like a banana. And it should be so easy because a banana is just a smile. Now, again, you don't even need to do the full outline. So you don't even need to fill in the whole length of the outline. If you just put in roughly around with the pen first, once you add the watercolour, it'll pick it up. So yeah, this is a great way to play. Now, these are fabulous because they're tiny. So working really small can sometimes be helpful as well. Sometimes working small is hard, but if you're just doing a basic shape, working small will really help. Now see how I am just adding lines and dots, and that's all I'm doing for detail. Now, really, it might not make sense at this point. Once I add the colour, because I'm going to add the colour that's close to the colour of the real fruit, that is just enough to trick the eye into knowing what it is. So quite funny, really, how, the brain works. All right, next is cherries. Sorry about my noisy family in the background with doors and calling out to each other and all the stuff. Cherries, classic, pretty easy. It's just a ball on the end of a bit of string, it looks like. And I didn't follow my reference guide that I'd already drawn myself, so I sort of had to add in a third cherry, but that's all good. And in fact, when I finished it, I looked at that compared to my original sketch that I'd kind of given to give myself an idea, and I much preferred my original, but I can make it work. Once I add colour, I'll be able to make it work. It's all good. All right, now, if you're finding that your outlines are not working for you, think about the fruit when it's cut, and that can help give a better idea of what the fruit is. Now, see here, the top of that orange segment should be straight. I've got it right on the second one, but I've gone with it, and you'll see in the end, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So don't worry about your mistakes. Just go for it. So here I am. I still haven't worked out my mistake and I still haven't fixed it, but that's okay. Now I'm popping the orange, a real orange behind it, if you feel like it's not making sense on its own. And I'm doing that because I know a real orange often has that little dimple where, the little round bit where the stalk has come from is. So, there you go. And a few dots over the orange skin, because they often have that. A few hatches underneath for a bit of shadow, and it just suddenly looks like it's sitting somewhere. Really rough, really fast. The faster, the better. In fact, try timing yourself. Try going, no, that's too long, and so stop it, and then just colour it and see how it comes out. Here I'm doing watermelon. I couldn't remember. I know there's a seed pattern that is pretty common to watermelons. Couldn't remember while I was doing it. Again, my reference is a little bit different to what I have ended up drawing in the end. And there's a noisy kitty cat in the background. I don't know if you can hear that too. So these ones, they sort of look like they're falling down from a great height. But that's all right. Again, it'll work out in the end once you add a bit of colour. And if it doesn't, the wonderful thing about this, you can use this as collage fodder. So anything that doesn't work out or you don't love, all you do, tear it up, throw it in a piece of collage. The other thing sometimes, if you don't like the look of it, if you actually fussy cut out your little finished drawing or your little finished painting, suddenly it looks completely different and can look a lot better. Throw it on a book page or something like that, and you've instantly got a different kind of art. All right, next one, my pineapple. Never really drawn pineapples before, so I had a go, and then I started to get a bit too carried away with my leaves, and I actually stop mid-leaf. There, I stop mid-leaf. And again, I don't need that whole leaf to make sense. I'm just adding a few scratchy marks in the body of the pineapple to give it a bit more definition. And voila, a few hatchy lines for shadow, and she's done. Amazing. Another one all complete. See, now I'm going a bit too much, but that's all right. All done and finished. Finally, I'm doing some grapes. So, I don't know. I have drawn grapes before, and I normally don't struggle with grapes, but this time I did. So this time I added the stalks in. I'm doing oval shapes. They're sort of like those green grapes, but I don't want to draw every single grape. I just want to give an impression and an idea. So I'm not even finishing the ovals on some of them. I'm leaving space in between. I'm not doing them bunched up really close together, and I'm making sure it finishes in a little bit of a point at the bottom. And again, just some scratchy hash lines for, a little bit of shadow to give it an impression that it's sitting on a surface somewhere. And then I was like, I'm still not quite sure about that, forgetting that I'm going to add watercolour afterwards. But I just added a few dots, and that just added a little bit of depth and definition. So there you are. There's a bunch of grapes. Now, here's the magic. So those sketches on their own, they're fine. They're quick. They're scratchy. Because I did the little feather lines, they look a little bit more grown up, but they're still so childlike. So all I'm doing is I'm mixing up a green, but I'm making it really yellow based. So blue, but adding loads of yellow. And you watch, I've almost done too much colour on this one, but that's it. I'm not colouring in, I'm just adding colour over the top. Here, brown for the pineapple, green for the leaves, just some strokes. Now you watch how those leaves get filled in. There you go. That leaf wasn't there like that, was it, in my original drawing? Now I'm doing my watermelons. This is that real pinky red for the watermelons, adding green for the for the skin. Voila, you got watermelons. Then oranges. Now, this is actually basically yellow ochre. I think I added a tiny bit of yellow, or I might have just gone straight from that. So there you are. And then I just decided I needed a bit more, so I just spread that out. I have not added anything to my brush. Now, here you can see me playing about a bit, probably a bit more clearly. That red was really strong, so then I, wiped it off on the page, and then I could just spread it out a little bit more, wiped off a bit more, and then I could spread it out a bit more again. I still felt it was too much, so I just used a tissue to dab it up, and then I could pick up off that bit that I'd wiped off on the page just to finish the detail, and a bit of green for the stalk or the stem. Now, once my grapes had dried, I went back in and I added a bit more dark green, so then my grapes were a bit better. Here, just some yellow for the, what do you call them? Bananas, and you're done. Here, a bit of yellow on the pears. So I am just adding a bit more depth there, and you can see that that's a deeper yellow than the first one, which was really watered down. Same colour though. And all I'm doing is I'm just adding a bit more shadow in and a teeny touch of green for the stems. All right, my apple. Again, lots of red. You can see how far it goes on these tiny drawings. This is a very fine brush. I think it was a 10, but you do not want to completely colour it in. So see, I've left a big splotch there. Doesn't really make sense initially, but it will make sense. Now here I've let the green bleed ever so slightly into the red there. Now all I did was I used a really light grey, really watered down over the shadow lines, and I also then splattered blue over, but I did that once everything was dry. Now when you do the splatters over, somehow that just fixes all your mistakes that you feel you've made, and you have this thing that suddenly looks like a finished picture. Now, as you can see, I did some slits in the back of these pieces of cardboard that I cut out just as little frames, and then all my little pictures could slot in. Because I didn't measure them, because you should measure them against the picture before you cut your slices, that's all right. I just had to tear them each down, and then they fitted into their little frames quite nicely, and that was good because it made them all a little bit different to each other. So there you go, popping him in again, and voila, you have a little framed picture. So then in your junk journals, these are really cool as an alternative. People can use them as journal cards, but you're putting a little bit of your own art in just for a bit of interest, just a little something. There they all are finished. They can go into a pocket, or you can do what I've done here and clip them to a page. Enjoy. I'd love it if you could leave me a comment below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed what you saw today. And of course, please subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you next time. And in the meantime, keep creating. Enjoy.